Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got an Olympian, a two-time Olympian in the Beijing and the London Games, Mr. Nick Symmonds. What's going on, Nick?
Hanging out another day in paradise here in Eugene, Oregon, aka Tracktown, USA.
That's right, man. There's a lot of that stuff out there, isn't there?
Yeah, so this city is actually where Nike was founded, and before they moved up to Beaverton to be closer to the city and the airport up there, they were in Eugene, Oregon, and there's a lot of running history here in town. I grew up in Boise, Idaho, but I always wanted to be up here to be close to that mecca of running.
That's right, and now you're here, so that's good. So we're excited, man. So why don't you listen, people that may not know who Nick Symmonds is, as I mentioned, two-time Olympian at the Beijing and the London Games, the 800-meter runner, and then also the founder and CEO of Run Gum. Why don't you give us a little background of who you are and what's made you the man you are today?
Yeah, well, like I said, I grew up in Boise, Idaho. I was really into all sports. If there was a season for it, I wanted to play it. So I played all the sports, soccer, ice hockey, everything. And I was okay at most of them, but I was never really great at anything. And then when I joined, when I went to high school, I really wanted to play varsity soccer, varsity ice hockey. And the coaches took one look at me. I was about 5 feet tall, 90 pounds. And they said, why don't you go out for cross country? No one can hurt you out on the cross country course. So I started running when I was about 13 or 14. And I was actually really good at it. I didn't want to be good at distance running, kind of my least favorite of all the sports, but I ended up being pretty good at it. So came through, won nine state titles in Idaho, came out to Oregon to run here. And then I got picked up by Nike for my first pro deal in 2006. And actually ran professionally for 12 years. And retired about 2 years ago, and threw myself into my business, and have been really actually happier as a retired athlete than as an actual athlete. Being a pro athlete's a very, very tough job, believe it or not.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to a lot of professional athletes, and they say the hardest thing isn't getting there, it's staying there, right? I mean, from nutrition to fitness,
just the pressure. Yeah. Getting there is easy. Every on your way up, it's fun. It's exciting. You're getting better and better, and more opportunities are coming your way. Staying there is just a ton of pressure. And then once you see yourself on the decline, a lot of athletes go through a pretty deep depression. I was, I guess, well guided enough to know that I needed an exit strategy. And so I had founded a business when I was 30 with my coach. I saw the writing on the wall. I only had a few good years left in my legs. And so we started a business when I was 30. And that was my exit strategy, not only to make up for the lost revenue of not being able to run professionally anymore, but also just to have that sense of purpose every day.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you're a reader. You got your books back there in the background. You've got some gum.
This is where we podcast, actually. Yeah. So this is my office here. We do a podcast as well. I have a podcast called Run the Day.
Oh, cool.
And this is where we podcast. You can see we've got the headsets and the full setup, right?
The full setup, man. That's awesome. Yeah. It's a great platform, isn't it, to impact a lot of people?
It is. I love it. I just love being able, selfishly, I love getting 30 minutes of people's time. Really incredible people, entrepreneurs and, business owners, athletes, just getting 30 minutes of their time to just learn their story. For me, it's super valuable. Yeah. And so selfishly, I get their time and we throw it out there for our listeners. And I think we really try to get into what makes, successful people tick, very similar to what you guys do here. Yep. There are some commonalities we find across all industries and all endeavors of what gets somebody to the finish line, versus somebody else.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you're right. I mean, I jokingly call it my therapy every single week. I mean, you're hearing from wonderful people, whether it's an Olympian, a professional athlete in the baseball world, if it's a business owner, whatever it may be, it's pretty awesome. So walk us through, because I know you said it's pretty easy to become the professional athlete. Obviously it's not easy. What was that like? Like, what was the typical day like for you, Nick, when you're thinking about getting prepared for those London Games? What's a typical day like for 4 years getting ready for that big run?
They're really boring, to be honest. I mean, I would wake up, I'd have some breakfast, and I'd go work out from like 9 to noon, running anywhere from 8 to 12 miles. Then I'd go home, have some lunch, take a nap, and then I'd come back in the evening to either swim a mile or run 4 more miles. So I was doing, 2 workouts a day almost every single day.
Wow.
And it's very monotonous. It's very repetitive. It gets very old very quick. But once the season comes around, that's exciting. You're not training quite as hard. You're feeling a lot better, more race-specific intervals, and you're traveling a lot. So I raced in 34 countries on 4 different continents. So I was on the road a lot, spent most of my summers in Europe and Asia racing. So that part was really exciting.
I bet.
But the 9 months leading into that of just sitting around twiddling your thumbs, that I could do without. I think that sacrifice, being away from home, being away from family, that was the hardest part for me. It was the boredom. It was the sacrifice. The training I liked. I enjoyed that. I talk about running 10 to 12 miles a day. I like that, believe it or not. The pressure I dealt with very well. I had a sports psychologist and I was good at dealing with the pressure. But just the boredom and the sacrifice. Every single day I just was like so bored. I read all the books I wanted to read. I've seen all the movies I wanted to see. And so for me, throwing myself into business, feeling like I was working on a skill that would, continue to benefit me in some way for the rest of my life, that was important. So I started my first business at 22, Nick Symmonds LLC, that managed my running income. I started another business at 25 with my coach that was a franchise of tanning salons, just because I felt like franchising would be a good way for me to learn business. And tanning salons, of course, are a very big business here in the Pacific Northwest. And then ultimately, we weren't passionate about that industry, so we sold the tanning salons so that we could have the seed money to launch Run Gum. And Run Gum's the business that I'm currently working on. I'm a CEO and co-founder of that company. And we launched as this kind of crazy concept. Would people use an energy gum over energy drinks, over alternatives, caffeine, taurine, B vitamins infused into a piece of chewing gum? And we launched it kind of just to test the market to see if it would work. 5 years later, we're sold in 15,000 stores. You can find us on store shelves in Target, REI, CVS, Walmart, Amazon.com.
Wow.
I mean, it's been wild.
That's awesome, man. So I want to go back though real quick if we can. You talked about you had a sports psychologist when you were running.
Yeah.
And so those are the things we don't see on TV, right? If we're watching the Olympics, we see the muscles, we see that we know you've been training and you've been running a lot, but how important is that mental side over the physical side?
This is the crazy thing. When I raced in the London finals in the Olympic Games, I was out on the track for about 2 minutes, and I had spent hundreds, thousands of hours preparing for those 2 minutes. Right. So, most of it's physical. I kind of always liken it to when you look at a horse race, right? You got the jockey and you've got the horse. The horse is the muscle and the jockey's the brains.
Yep.
But a runner is one and the same. I've got the driver here in my brain, but I've also got to, manage my energy systems, be the fitness. So it's a combination of the two. And I think the best athletes are certainly always working on being fitter and faster and stronger, but they're also working on handling the pressure, dealing with anxiety, visualization, all of the mental tricks that we use to be the best driver of the car once we step on the track.
And so what's that psychologist? Walk us through one of those meetings. I mean, what are you guys talking about and talk about your visualization? Because I believe that holds true in the business world as well, right?
It does. And everybody's different, right? So what makes me tick is different than what makes, another athlete tick. And a good sports psychologist kind of digs into what is this athlete's motivators, what is their hurdles, their obstacles, and how are we going to get around those? For me, I would say one of my strong points, I'm not necessarily the most genetically gifted. One of my strong points was my mental ability. I was able to game up. When it really counted, I brought the best product possible. But if there was a curveball thrown my way, sometimes I would let that kind of lead me into this spiral of self-doubt. And so most of what we dealt with was things that I couldn't control. And as a business owner, you can probably imagine I'm a bit of a control freak.
Right.
Things that are out of my control would really upset me. And I would let that negative energy kind of really eat away at me. And he'd always joke, my sports psychologist, Jeff Trosh, would say, you're going to beat yourself before you give anyone else a chance to beat you. Yep. And so a lot of it was learning to understand that there were some things that were out of my control, and that those variables could sometimes go in my favor, and recognizing that, but the variables I could control and not letting the other variables that I couldn't control, really radically affect me.
So what are the things advice you'd give as obviously a professional runner? What advice would you give for the guy like me who's just, go out and run a couple miles a day, and but what do we need to be doing to stay more efficient, stay in better shape? What are some of those things?
The number one thing that anyone, amateur or pro, needs to focus on first and foremost is consistency. So I get this from people all the time. Well, I want to start training. I want to be a better runner, so I'm going to go run an hour tomorrow. And I'm just like, you're gonna get injured. You're gonna, get tired and run
burn
down.
out. Yeah.
You're gonna be so you're gonna burn out. I'm like, focus on consistency before quantity. So I am when I coach athletes or when I, write programs for people, I say, I would much rather see you run 1 mile a day for 7 days straight than run 7 miles and be so gassed that you can't run the rest of the week. So I always say, teach yourself consistency, teach yourself to embrace the structure of training, the sacrifice of training. And you can always start scaling that up once you feel like that 1 mile isn't challenging enough for you. But prove to yourself that you can handle consistency, which is way harder than quantity. Prove that you can handle consistency in the structure of training, and then start scaling that training.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's funny because I always talk about, brushing our teeth. We don't brush our teeth 14 times on Sunday. We brush them twice a day. Right.
That's a really good analogy.
Times by Sunday. So
yeah,
I agree. So that's good. I like that. So for you, when you look at visualization, apply that to the boardroom now, right? It was the track, but now it's the boardroom. What's that look like for you? Do you have a moment in the morning where you're sitting there, your kind of eyes closed, you're visualizing, or how do you do that?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit different. I would say we're more goal focused here in business. And I was always really goal focused in running. Don't get me wrong. The visualization that we used in running was literally me visualizing kicking the crap out of people on the track. Not like physically, but like running away from them, embarrassing them. I would visualize myself, pulling away in the last 100 and what the crowd would do, how I would react to that, the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I would visualize getting tripped. If I got tripped in the first 100 meters, what would I do? If it was a slow race, what would I do? If it was a fast race, what would I do? So there's so many variables that I can't control in running. I would have to spend some time visualizing how I would handle those variables. And then it would calm me down knowing that I was prepared for anything that was thrown my way. In business, where we can control most of the variables, it's more saying, okay, which of these variables do we want to put our time and energy into? So we're really focused on short, intermediate, and long-term goals. We have everybody write down their personal and their business goal at the beginning of every year and write it down on a sticky note, which makes you 42% more likely to actually achieve it. And we frame those and we put them on everybody's desk. So, here we are all about goal setting and more importantly, goal achieving. It's easy to set goals. It's harder to achieve them. To build a path towards achieving.
Amen to that. Yeah, it is true, because a lot of times too, I like how I used to do that when I was a new advisor, 23 years old. I had all my goals written down. I had them all in a frame, and I set it next to my phone because, as a financial advisor, you got to pound that phone all day long when you're new and young in the business. But I think it's important because so many of us write down goals and then we put them in our top right drawer of our desk and we don't see them until we clean it out like 3 years later. Well, much less likelihood of you hitting that, right?
You got to write it on a sticky note, and you got to put that sticky note somewhere you're going to see it every single day. And it's not just, and I don't even put just one sticky note. I got a chain of 10 sticky notes that lead me to that ultimate sticky note. So if my goal is, for example, I recently started training to become a pilot, to get my private pilot's license.
I saw that yesterday, man. You had your first solo flight, right?
I did. And that was one of my intermediate goals. So I had this huge goal of trying to get my private pilot certificate. Very, very challenging mentally and physically. And to say that's my goal, it's almost insurmountable. So I broke it down in smaller goals. Like yesterday, I achieved the goal of getting my first solo. But before that, there were half a dozen goals I had to get just to get there. The first one was have your first flight. Like literally get behind, the stick and actually control the plane. Rip that sticky note up. It felt great. The next one was get to 5 hours. You need 40 hours to take your private exam. And I said, that sounds insane. Like getting to 40 hours is going to be very hard. I just have to get to 5 hours. And, you break these things down into much more manageable chunks. And you get that kind of that dopamine rush to your brain when you hit one of those little goals. That's self-sustaining, of course.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about this for a second. So you look at an airplane. You don't just get in the airplane yesterday and just go, right? And so
it'd be a good way to kill yourself.
That would be a good way to kill yourself. So I've got a coaching client. I have some clients that I coach personally on just life and different things. And one of them is right now, he just went and passed his test. So we're very proud of that because he had to do the 40 hours, like you said. And it's funny, his coaching is coming from a guy who hasn't been on an airplane in 5 years.
Wow.
I had a bad flight, haven't flown. That's a whole nother podcast. We can talk about that. I'm getting over that fear based on this podcast. I got to jump in. I got to do it. But anyway, but you don't just get in an airplane, just like you shouldn't just walk into a business meeting, right? Walk us through that process to just fly an airplane, applying it to the boardroom.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was something that I'd always wanted to do. So I think that it starts with an underlying passion. You're going to be pretty miserable in that boardroom, or you're going to be pretty miserable in that plane if it's not something that you desire, So I think that's important first, is identify what you're actually passionate about. I'm passionate about business, so it's easy for me to sit in a board meeting. Yeah. I'm passionate about flying, so it's easy for me to, drive the 30 minutes to the airport every other day. So, focus on setting goals and things that you're really passionate about. That should be obvious, but for some people it's not, especially if you're trying to impress other people. That's a really good way to set a goal that you're probably never going to hit. It's not that important to you. And then have the humility to understand that you're a student and that you're probably going to be a student for a long time. And I'm talking forever, right? So one of the cool things about being a private pilot, they say it's a license to learn, because pilots are forever learning. You're learning to get new ratings. You're learning new how to fly new planes. You're learning to be better pilots. So you're basically signing up to be a lifelong learner. Business is very similar, right? So I'm always aspiring to be a better businessman. I'm always learning from other people who have come before me, learning from people who have done it differently than me. So I think that's important. And then, I go back to goal setting. Just break it down, because if I say I aspire for Run Gum to be $1 billion company, I'm serious. That is the delusional statement. But if I were to put together a credible plan of how we're going to do 10 million in sales, 50 million in sales, 100 million in sales, now it's less delusional. I actually got a path that I could theoretically follow to get there. So whether it's, an athletic goal or my pilot goal or business goal, you better have a path, or you are just a delusional person. Build a path to get you to that goal.
Yeah, I agree, because you could, I think it's easy to sit down and have this pie in the sky goal, but until you back it into today, what do I have to do? So I have a thing, people listen to this every week, hear me talk about Focus 90. So I'm helping people with their Focus 90. They're 90 minutes in the morning. If we can win that 90 minutes, you'll win the rest of the day, right? And so, but it's just showing up. Because even on the days, there were plenty of days, I'm assuming you didn't want to show up and run 12 miles and work out and eat the salad for lunch instead of the French fries and all that stuff, right? So what was your purpose? Because you don't just do all that stuff because of course you want the gold medal around your neck, right? But there's more to it than that. So what was your purpose? What was your drive every day when you were thinking about that journey?
Running is a weird thing where you're constantly, I use this analogy, like you're building this reservoir, right? So you start running and you're getting stronger. So you run more miles and you run more miles. And there's this reservoir of strength that you're building. And, a season stacks on a season, stacks on a year. And you just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I always felt I owed it to my younger self to prove to him that his hard work would pay off. And so that fueled me for like 10 years, 12 years, just this sense of responsibility that my younger self had given me this gift of strength and fitness. And I owed it to him to give it everything I had in the present today, to thank him for his sacrifice, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does.
It was a sense of accountability to my younger self for all this hard work and sacrifice that I'd put in.
What would you tell yourself if you look back, tell that guy 10 years ago? What advice, what feedback would you give Nick?
Calm the hell down. Like I was so.
Yeah, what's funny about this? Sorry to interrupt you. I just coined a phrase yesterday with my business partner, Tim. I said, we got to calm the bleep down and enjoy the journey. I said, you know what? I'm going to make a bumper sticker, man. It says, calm the bleep down and enjoy the journey.
I mean, but I think driven people are kind of like that. We're results focused and we want it now. We're impatient, and it makes for really successful people. It also makes for, somewhat malcontent people. We're never happy. We're never satisfied. When I would set a huge new personal best or win a huge race, I would like throw my hands up in the air. And as I'm cooling down, I'd be like, what's next? What's my next goal? Right. What's my next race?
God forbid you enjoy
so I'm
that
never
moment.
Satisfied. You're never, ever going to get to the top if you are just the guy that says, oh, cool, I did it. Well, I'm happy now. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, you want to enjoy the process, but if all you do is enjoy the process and you're not results oriented, you'll never get the result. So I've always been a very, very malcontent, result focused person, and I'm trying in my middle age now to be more focused on the process, take more enjoyment from it, because ultimately I aspire to be a happier person rather than a win at all cost person.
Yeah, it's true. I think I read, I think it was Bryce Harper, right, the baseball player, and he said something about, they were asking about his success in his career. And they said, what was his focus? And he said, my focus wasn't to become a Major League Baseball player. My focus was to be a Hall of Fame baseball player. Right. And so you think about that focus. Some people just get to the majors and then they're like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. I played one game, but that's where their mind took them to. Right. So we have to think bigger. We have to believe bigger. And now here he is thinking about being a Hall of Fame baseball player. Totally different.
Yeah. I mean, dream big. Right. And if you're one of the cheesy, trite phrases that I really love is, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Right.
Like, you should wake up and say, I'm dreaming of doing this and I don't think I can do it. And I'm scared to even tell somebody because I'm so doubtful. Like, that's the kind of goals you need to have.
That's right. That's right. So walk us through what a typical day looks like for you today. I mean, what's your fitness like? What's your eating habits like? I guess some other questions too, but tell me about those things.
Still pretty similar. Fitness is still kind of the glue that holds everything together for me. So I wake up about 5 a.m. I work out from 6 to 7 or 6 to 8, depending on what the workout is, and then shower, have some breakfast, and I'm in the office. I always said I will never ever work 9 to 5, and here I am working a 9 to 5. But right. It's my company, so I don't mind it that much.
Yeah.
I'm here working with the team. We've got really great employees, or really just crackerjack staff that's crushing it right now. Yep. And then I go home and I try to go for a walk with my fiance and my dog, and maybe treat myself to a couple beers or something. But
nice.
I would say I like structure. As a younger person, I was very much opposed to structure. I resented it, but now I appreciate it, and I like my days to be structured out.
So I asked this question of our team. I made a social media post last week about it, and I don't know if a lot of people will actually take the advice and do it with your teams. But so I ask you is, if your business could talk right now, your business could talk to me and tell me a story, what's your business saying? What's it doing?
Well, our mission here is twofold. We always say we're here to fuel and inspire people to make the most of their busy days. So we fuel them with our energy gum. It's a great product. It's just like a Red Bull, but you don't have all the sugar and acidity and calories. So a quick boost of energy, and at a fraction of the cost. And then we really try to motivate people, right? So if you listen to the podcast, if you look at my YouTube channel, if you subscribe for our emails, most of what we're doing is trying to inspire people to set their own goals and to make the most of their busy days. So, if Run Gum, the corporation, was going to talk to you, it would basically say, hey, what do you want to do this year? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do today? Because so many of us just phone it in, and we only get one shot at this life. How are you going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish today, this year, and this lifetime? And how can we help?
I think that's a big deal. So how long did it take you to find that mission, and what was that process like to get it?
It was before we sold our first packet of gum. It was literally, so I'm like I said, I'm a results oriented guy. I was like, how are we going to get this thing to 10 million in sales? That was my first thought when we decided we were going to start a company. Fortunately, we hired somebody, another co-founder, Nathan Woods, who is kind of the heart and soul of the company. And he said, I don't care about 10 million in revenue. What I care is how many people's lives can we touch? And so it's the perfect balance of the results oriented, CEO. We have to, hit our goals. We have to, provide a return for our investors. We have to, make money. Yep. And then if that's all you're doing, that's a really sad, shallow way to live your life. So then Nathan comes in and says, how many jobs can we create? How many people's lives can we help? How much fun can we have? And and if you have just that person, you never sell any gum. So you take the two, Nathan and myself, we ham and egg it. It's the perfect combo. And I think that's really truly what has led to our meteoric success in the first 5 years.
That's cool. So, and we obviously know the answer to this, but how important, especially in your partnership, just like it is with your fiance, but how important is communication on your team right now, and what's that look like?
I think communication is a word that's used pretty liberally. I think you need to communicate effectively. So much of our communication now is just not pertinent. It's garbage. It's junk email. It's Slack. It's DMing. It's just utilize communication the way in a business sense. Utilize it in the most efficient way possible. So for every corporation, that's a little bit different, and every person's a little bit different. If you ask me to use Slack, I would just quit the job tomorrow. I'm not going to use some app. Nothing against Slack. It's just that I personally don't need another thing to check in every day. Right. So I batch everything through email. If you want to get a hold of me, email. Some people abhor looking at their email. It stresses them out, and they can't stand I want everything residing in one spot. I check on my terms. I don't get email notifications when I get a new email. Yep. I check email when I choose to. So I control the communication. Maybe that's a luxury that I have as the CEO, but I'm overwhelmed with the way that we communicate with each other these days. And at some point there has to be parameters and boundaries.
Well, I agree. I mean, I just started this. So I'm 19 years in this month into our business in being in this industry, I should say. And I just, with a great partner in Robin Edwards, my assistant, she checks all my emails now, right? And so that process for those listeners out there, I have a new email address that like 3 people know that even exist, right? So I don't get email anymore. And our team, we've had great growth in our firm as well. Our clients, we know we're going to take care of them, right? They send me an email. Robin is on it. She's on it with me. We deliver, we make it happen. But there has to be that process there to guard our time so we can do the best work, right? Because our mission, just you pointed out yours, our mission is to help people achieve a future greater than their past.
Very cool.
I can't do that if I'm checking emails all day.
No. Right? I mean, you can't do anything. You're a slave to the emails.
Right. Right. So it's been a game changer for me to have, maybe 2 emails a day that come in, and it's helped me be a lot more efficient, a lot more in the moment, whether that's at home with my wife and 4 kids, or if that's in a business meeting. I don't have to worry about the noise. And so I think that's a big deal for people that are listening. Talk to me about not necessarily even the times you didn't want to do it, but maybe the times it took you to your knee. You thought there's no way I'm going to make the Olympics, because it's not like it was a 4-year run. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make the Olympics. I'm going to make the finals. And it's just a straight line. How did you get through the tough times, and what advice would you have for our listeners on that?
You got to surround yourself with people who believe in you more than you even believe in yourself. And self-doubt is the most cancerous, emotion to any athlete or any business person. And we all have it. Elon Musk has self-doubt. He's very, very confident in his ability to deliver, but I guarantee there are moments of self-doubt in everybody. And myself included. And I always just surrounded myself with people who believed in me even more than I believed in myself. And when that self-doubt would creep in, I would lean on them, and they always got me through those tough times. And you just have to have people in your corner that you can call upon. So whether it was my coach, Sam, who's my business partner today, my parents, my sports psychologist, they would be able to give me a perspective that maybe I couldn't see in the moment, that would allow me to say, hey, it's not as bad as I think it is. And I've overcome obstacles much harder than this, in the past. And I'll get through this one too.
And you talked about a coach. I think this is a good point here. So I don't know the answer to this. Normally I don't ask questions you don't know the answer to, right? But on a podcast, you ask a lot of questions you don't know the answer. But
right.
How many times, I don't know the running world that well. So did you have to hire your coach and pay out of your own money, or how does that work?
Yeah. So most pros, it's kind of, you're piecing it together. So you are looking for a coach, and they're going to take 10% of everything you make. You've got an agent doing your shoe deals and getting you into races. They're taking 15% of everything you make. So right now, if you make $1, 25 cents is gone.
Gone.
You're left with 75 cents. Then you got to pay taxes, which is probably another 25 to 40%. So I always thought if I make 50 cents on the dollar, if I take home 50 cents on the dollar, that's a good estimation of what I'm actually bringing home. Yep. That's pretty brutal. one of the nice things about running for a team, and there's not a lot of teams. Most of these people are independent contractors kind of out doing it on their own. I was part of a team with Nike and a team with Brooks Running later on in my career, and they provided coaching, they provided gear, they provided travel, so some of those things can be comped.
So if you're going from Oregon to wherever, South Carolina for a race, Brooks Running team is making sure you get there. Yeah. They're giving you shoes, of course, all that stuff. So you're not having to worry about hotel rooms and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I always remind people, Team USA is as great as it is because of our corporate support. So it's businesses that are sponsoring these athletes that make it possible for us to have the best team in the United States. It's not the USOC. I promise it's not them, because they are taking all the money for themselves. It's not the individual federations like, U.S. Gymnastics, which, we could go all day about how bad they are for their athletes. Right. It's not USATF, which steals money from the athletes. It is companies like Nike. It's companies like Run Gum. It's companies like Brooks Running that are sponsoring athletes. That is what keeps Team USA at the top of the podium. That's
a big deal, man. Big deal. So talk to me about that logo on your hat there, and I can see it on the packages in the back. How do you come up with that?
I wish I could say I had this like epiphany and we're going to call it Run Gum and we're going to have this awesome logo. We hired a small boutique agency in Milwaukee to help with the name and the packaging. And, we didn't want to take any chances. Like I said, we had sold the tanning salons. We had the cash on hand. So we hired an agency to help us with that. And we called it Run Gum, not because it was for runners, but it is born from runners. It's because it's for anyone on the run, whether you're running errands, whether you're running around town, running into a meeting. Run is a word that for most people means motion, and motion takes energy. And we give you that energy with caffeine, taurine, and B vitamins in a really lightweight, handy packet. One dose of energy, just like you buy, an energy drink or an energy shot. This is a dose of energy. The caffeine equivalency of about a cup of coffee or an energy drink here.
Well, I like the looks for those that are watching it. The run, I mean, you can see the run, the way it's written on your hat. A little run looks like some lines. Looks cool. I like it.
Yeah, thanks very much. We got a lot of compliments about the name and the logo. And then the packaging. It's very colorful. It just jumps out at you. When you see it at a point of sale. You're going to see us merchandised in sporting goods at Walmart and Target.
Okay. I go to Target enough, so I'm sure I'll see it everywhere now.
Back to the sporting
I just got to look it up for it.
Everywhere. Exactly.
So what fears in your mind that you put in as an athlete, as a business owner, how many of those fears blew up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
I mean, my new mentality is don't worry about a problem until it is actually a problem. And so I would say, as an athlete, most of my fears never materialized. I was so worried about injuries that never happened. I was so worried about other athletes that never rose to the occasion. I was always worried about these things and I wish I hadn't worried so much, because they never actually ended up being a problem. And so I've taken that lesson with me into my professional life, and I don't worry about something until it's a problem. I could sit here and fret about the looming recession everyone's talking about. I could sit here and worry about that all day long, or I could just build up the business as strong as I can so it's on the best foundation possible, so that when that recession hits, which it will, we've got our best foundation possible to weather it. And so I don't worry about problems until they materialize, or I really aspire to do that in my personal and professional life these days.
If I can help you with anything on that, is during that recession, so I owned my own business, 08, 09. I'm in the financial industry. Our self-talk was we're going to choose to not participate in the recession, right? And we said that thousands of times, right?
Yeah,
it is mentality. And so we would say, we're just choosing not to participate in the recession.
I like
it's that. Like you just say that, but then you say it over and over and over, and you believe it. And we had some of our best years in 08 and 09. Because there's
incredible businesses that were founded in 6 and 7 that weathered it. There are businesses that were founded in 8 and 9 in the depths of the recession that have come on to be incredible. So it is a lot of the media playing it up for views, and not to say that there aren't real problems, but if you have that mentality of we can weather anything, of we choose not to participate, you've put yourself out on a different level when you wake up each day and go to attack it.
So I'm starting this new thing on the podcast to show this little phone right here and what this thing means in our lives.
Right.
Any routines or any things that you can share with us to help us become either one, more efficient with our phone, or become more purposeful in life because we're not so tied to this thing?
I have two rules. These are very important, and I bet you not a single listener will follow me on these, but these are rules that do not get broken by me, and I can't stress them enough. Number one, that phone better not be the last thing you look at before you go to bed. You know how bad that is for your circadian rhythm. If you're staring at a bright screen right before you go to bed, you will have worse sleep, period. Yep. Study after study has shown that. Read anything other than a screen, from a screen. So read a book, read a magazine, meditate. Just make sure that the last thing you look at before you go to bed is not a screen. That includes television screens. Number two is turn the damn phone off, right? Because you're not going to sleep as deeply if you're worried about it chirping at you all night. Yep. And this last one is kind of a bonus one. It's something that I learned as an athlete. But if you can wake up without using an alarm, and I know most of us are using our phones as an alarm now, that is the holy grail of training for an athlete. For me, it was, and it's my holy grail of training as a businessman. I aspire to never, ever wake up to an alarm, because if I do, it means, one, I've probably woken myself up out of deep REM sleep, which is the most important sleep. Yep. But two, it means I just didn't get enough rest, right? You cannot operate optimally as an athlete or as a person if you don't get enough sleep. So I'm in bed about 8:30. I read up till 9:30. I fall asleep. And I wake up with the sun like we were supposed to as human beings.
That's right.
With a natural circadian rhythm. And I just have way more energy for it. If I do on those off days have to wake up to an alarm, it sets me off on a bad mood, and I didn't get enough sleep, and I'm grumpy all day, and I don't think as clearly. I don't have as much energy. That's right. So that's my holy grail of training in business and in life and in sport is to never wake up to an alarm.
I like it. I couldn't agree more, man. So I read, I had it on my shelf for a while. He was on my podcast, Sean Stevenson. I don't know if you know Sean Stevenson or not, but he wrote the book, Sleep Smarter. Right. It's a phenomenal book, and a lot of stuff of what you're saying.
So many people are like, how can I maximize my life by not sleeping? Can I life hack sleep away?
Yeah.
Why in the world would you want to do that? Sleep is one of the greatest gifts that we've been given. I try to, like I say, maximize the hours that I get of sleep and make sure they're the best sleep possible, which it sounds like this guy's onto something.
Oh, he's on it, man. It's a phenomenal book. So if you like to read that stuff, I thought, how fun could this be to read about sleep, right? But it was more about the screen time. I've got all my, if you looked at my nightstand before, hell, I'd have, 2 or 3 iPads there. I got 4 kids, right? And so I'd have, iPads, I'd have Apple Watches, I'd have everybody's iPhone, everything's charging, right?
Too much.
And all this stuff's going into my brain. So now it's all out. I can't get rid of the iPhone yet because it is my alarm clock. I'm working on it. Right. I know I could buy like a $5 alarm, but
right.
Baby steps, right? Baby steps.
Baby steps.
So where can our listeners find more of Nick Symmonds? Where are you at?
I'm on all platforms at Nick Symmonds, Symmonds with a Y. I'm really active on YouTube lately. I just love that. I love it. I love to consume YouTube content. I love to create YouTube content. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram as well. I haven't used Facebook in about 10 years.
Nice.
They lost me. I still have my fiance helps me with social, and so she'll post stuff on Facebook, but I don't really interact much on it.
Hey, they still got you, man, because they own Instagram.
Oh yeah, and I know, and I love Instagram, but just the way that platform,
I
shifted.
agree.
And I was the guy, I had my first Facebook account when you had to have a .edu address in order to get a Facebook account. I remember those were the good old days, and then it just became something that I wasn't enjoying anymore. So if you want to reach me, I answer all of my DMs on Instagram. So DM me, let me know what you liked about this podcast. Let me know where you think I'm a kook. That's fine too. You can call me out. And then of course, check it out on YouTube. And then Run Gum is on all channels at Run Gum.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, Nick, thanks for being with us, man. I know you could do a lot of things with your time. We appreciate you being on the Circuit of Success and spending some time with our listeners.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.